the way I look at it is when you look at the supply chain in pharma, right? It starts from the R&D, clinical, and then it comes to the raw material, right? And looking at today's scenario, as I was mentioning earlier also, that only out of 10,500, only first 500 companies may have the digitalization done in their supply chain. When I say digitalization, it is not only the manufacturing data, it is the quality data, it is the raw material data, it is the consumable data, and across the manufacturing, which is in scope of a plant, right? End to end, you need to have digital data, right? And in today's world, in India parlance, if I look at it, the challenge is related to cost, right? So if I look at Indian scenario, the cost of a drug is very sensitive, and the government for critical drugs, they are expecting that we reduce cost. So one side is the cost thing that a company has to look at. Another thing is the quality, right? So if you have a good pharma process and end-to-end visibility of our data, then definitely it is going to help the industry in long run. So today's challenges is bringing all the technology on the digital platform. So going forward, I think that will happen. And there are a lot of new technologies that are emerging, right? As I was discussing in the earlier, event, that collating the data is becoming so much important because data has all the solutions. And once you analyze the data, you have different perspective. So you know where are the issues, where are the underlying issues, whether the raw material quality is an issue, your manufacturing is an issue. And in today's world, we have technologies to analyze it. Earlier, it was all dependent on the humans. Now we have AI and ML technology where we can build our golden tunnel. So when I say golden tunnel, you should be thinking, what is this? So basically, if there are 100 parameters, we call it critical process parameters, and we need to see that they are working within very close tolerance. So if something happens and if goes to the upper tolerance, you get an information, and the operator has the capability or the training that he will make changes, he will tweak changes in some other parameters so that he works within that golden tunnel. So since quality is more important because of the patient safety, right? These kind of technologies need to be built in or need to be implemented, but it cannot be done immediately. It will take some time, and that is where I was talking about that we need to have some patience, because serialization and blockchain, AI, ML, these are all futuristic technologies, and definitely they are very much capable. But only thing is the time and the efforts that will require to deploy this. So we discussed about the cold chain, right? We talked about if the distribution has to happen within some temperature criteria, or the distribution has to happen as somebody was talking in the event, right? The power generator goes off. Okay, then what happens? So in today's scenario, this is an investment, basically, long-term investment, where each of the logistic partners, if they are having a container and if they are into this business, right, they need to have their information firsthand, okay, which we call edge computing. Near the edge, you collect all the information. In today's scenario, 100% of the world, your internet is getting, accessed. So I don't see that any challenge in this regard where any intrusions are happening, okay, on the temperature front, or any stoppages are happening, or anything, from the container perspective, anything is breaking. All this information can be tracked and data can be collated and immediate action can be taken. So see, these are all evolving technologies, right? So again, we may compare with Indian parlance and you may compare with the US parlance, and both US, when I say it is a Western country, right? So they may have much more stringent, tolerances where they talk about 2-3 degrees, and we're talking about 10 degrees or 5 degrees. So everybody has a different regulations and compliance, but technology remains the same. So that is what I would suggest, that we need to have one compliance or one regulatory rules which cuts across all the regions, and every country should try to achieve to that policy or that rules and regulation, rather than achieving different regions, because it again adds to cost. And again, the SOP, the training part, because these are all creating a lot of complexity. And that is where, going forward, when you have one solution, like I was talking about the GST part, right, where there is one GST that everybody, the vendor, customer, manufacturer, everybody data is coming in one GST, right? So everybody has the visibility also on the pricing, on the quantity. So going forward, even when we talk about the logistic part of it, and if there are incursions, excursions, all those things, right? If there are something happening to that product which is going to a container, okay, every data can get, displayed onto one solution, like the GST what we are having today. So there anybody can see that there was a, drop in the temperature, there was increase in the temperature for this much time. So they can accept it, they can accept the product, but they are aware of it, that my product is still, because it was only hardly 5-10 minutes, there was a temperature down, and it was again, so there was nothing that happened, but there was a drop. But for that drop, there is no impact on my quality, so he can accept it also. So, but we have to be more transparent, and the trust between all the providers, manufacturers, or the raw material, or the vendors, or the customer, there has to be trust, and they should share they should share the information, the data, with all others, so that there are no gaps. I think this was very much in depth discussed in one of the panels also, right? So there are regulatory bodies which talks about non-tampering of the packaging. Okay, the first part is your packaging should be, nobody can play with it, or if somebody has played with it, did some tampering of it, then there has to be a clue, so that your end customer or your customer, whoever is, whether it is a distributor or a pharmacy or the end, he should be able to clearly make it out. And there are lot of things to determine. There are on the packaging, there are holograms, and then one of my colleagues were talking about, there are certain chemicals which change the color, right? The moment there are some excursion in the temperature, or the moment somebody tried to tamper it. So there are various ways and means which can determine the quality of the product, right? Earlier I talked about the LIMS part. So when we talk about the digitalization, LIMS is the first thing that comes out of lab. Whatever data you're getting generated in the lab, everything comes there, right? So that becomes the basic batch, quality, specification, and what the results are. And that can, go to the common cloud. I don't know how, things will evolve, but if we want a transparent, transparent environment where even the regulatory bodies can view it. Okay, because see, end of the day, rather than coming every month or every year and every 2 years, they can have all the data on one single place, what we call a Medi-Ledger or Pharma Ledger, and they can do their analysis, right? Because nobody can change it. So today what we are having, every data is in silos, which I think, even when they suspect our data, because of the security reason, authorization, there are a lot of other things where people start suspecting Indian data. So if we move towards a blockchain where we store our all manufacturing as well as our quality related data, there will be much more trust between the regulators. And I think the mistrust that today's lies is just because the data is manual, or they don't believe the data has been fudged, or maybe some third party has made any changes during the transit of the drugs, right? So security hackers can also do a lot of things. So in the whole chain, you don't know who has done what. So technology plays very important role, and I think going forward, that is the only way to sustain our supply chain.